Good morning to one and all present here. I'm Teresa Sabu, second year BEd student, St. Joseph Training College, Mananam. It's my immense pleasure in welcoming you all to this webinar on Fundamentals of Intellectual Property Rights for Teachers, organized by IQAC St. Joseph Training College, Mananam. A day without prayer is a day without blessing, and a life without prayer is a life without power, says Edwin Harvey. I now request Ms. Shruti Akka John, second year BEd student, St. Joseph Training College, Mananam, for the prayer song. Shruti, please.
Feeling that presence, feeling that way, dear. You are my source of faith and strength. You are my path and destination, and I'm always connected to you. Nothing of me and everything of you. Lead me higher, lead me deeper, lead me beyond, lead me to you.
Thank you, Shruti, for your melodious voice. Now, I kindly request Dr. Praveena Gopinath, Assistant Professor, St. Joseph Training College, Mananam, to introduce the resource person as well as to welcome the gathering. Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning, Fernando. Respected Principal Dr. Varghese K. Cheriyan, resource person for the day Mrs. Ashwati G. Krishnan, and beloved participants. A warm good morning to Fernando. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the national webinar on fundamentals of intellectual property rights for teachers. Friends, today we are living in the midst of information revolution. Intellectual property is the result of conversion of knowledge into a commercially exploitable potential. It is for the betterment of all nations that we promote intellectual property rights. Only societies where such rights are protected witness cultural advancement and economic progress. Teachers have also some rights of their intellectual properties, and we should be aware of those rights. Then only we can understand those do's and don'ts. I hope this webinar will help you in this regard. Now, let me come to my duty. Our principal, Dr. Varghese K. Cheriyan, is the backbone of our institution. He is always with us with proper guidance and support. Sir, with a thankful heart, I welcome you to inaugurate this webinar. Now, I would like to introduce you the resource person of today's webinar, Ms. Ashwati G. Krishnan, who is working as Assistant Professor at Department of Law, University of Kerala. She completed her BA LLB Honours degree from National University of Advanced Legal Studies and her Master's degree in Public Law and Intellectual Property Rights from Department of Law, University of Kerala. She has 6 years of teaching experience and currently doing research on patent courts in the interface between patent and competition law. She has 4 publications and 12 paper presentations to her credit and coordinated various national and international webinars and workshops. She is also acting as the assistant editor to the half-yearly journal published by Kerala University Department of Law. With immense pleasure, I welcome you, dear man, on behalf of all the participants gathered here to enrich us with your knowledge and expertise. We have got registration from all across India and even got a handful of international participants. Also teachers and students from various colleges and schools all over Kerala is here. So I take this opportunity to wholeheartedly welcome you all to this webinar. I am also delighted to welcome my colleagues, friends and students who are gathered here. Wish you all a truly fruitful session. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your warm welcome. Now let us listen to the words of our dear principal, Dr. Varghese K. Cheriyan, St. Joseph Training College, Mananam.
Good morning. distinguished resource person, Ms. Ashwati G. Krishnan, the course coordinator, Dr. Praveena Gobinath, dear colleagues, esteemed participants of this webinar, and my dear students. It is not surprising that concerns about intellectual property should arise in the classroom. Usually these are pedagogical concerns about the best way to teach students respect the intellectual property rights of others, both in their academic work and in their use of computer technology. Sometimes there are professional concerns, such as when a teacher wonders about the legality of using internet content in a homework sheet or sharing a colleague's classroom management software. In the broadest terms, intellectual property is of any product of a creative mind. An idea, insight, or inspiration does not become intellectual property until it is fixed in some tangible form of expression. Once fixed, intellectual property may be protected by patent, copyright, or trademark laws. As the language of Constitution makes clear, the purpose of intellectual property rights is to promote innovation by giving innovators economic control over their creations. For educators, plagiarism is the most familiar area of intellectual property concerns. In the classroom, plagiarism involves misrepresenting another person's intellectual work as one's own. Students often reduce this concept to word-by-word copy, that an author lifts passage from another book or a musician samples tunes from another recording without permission. The author who merely appropriates ideas, restates facts, and rephrases arguments is not a plagiarist. On the contrary, by putting borrowed intellectual content into his own words, such an author actually creates his own intellectual property. Within an academic context, the rules are much stricter. Academic plagiarism involves not only direct quotation, but any use of another's intellectual content without attribution, including facts, data, ideas, arguments, or lines of thinking. In simplest terms, this means that students should learn to credit their sources whenever they consult the work of another. The accepted format for crediting sources differs across the academic disciplines. But for elementary school students, any convenient format will serve to help them get in the habit of taking notes and giving credit to the resources they use in their schoolwork. Developing this habit is especially important as students being to use CD-ROM and internet resources, which some people mistakenly believe are exempt from the rules that apply to printed materials. Teach students to give the title of a CD-ROM and the page number or file name they have consulted. Show them how to copy the URL of a web page and paste it into another's research notes. Students can learn the formalities for citing such resources as they advance in school. At an appropriate age, students should also learn that consequences of academic plagiarism can be extremely harsh. In college, plagiarism can lead to failure on a paper or a failure in a course or even expulsion from the school. These penalties underscore that plagiarism is a serious academic offense, a form of cheating or intellectual theft that rarely goes unpunished. Intellectual property theft is called piracy. It's a concept that goes back to the early years of the printing press, when unscrupulous publishers would purchase a book or illegally obtain a manuscript, set the text in their own shop, and print off a pirated edition. Actually, Shakespeare is perhaps the most famous victim of this practice. So, It continued into the early 21st century. Now, of course, pirates no longer need their own printing press. Computers have put the tools of piracy into every home, allowing almost anyone to produce illegal copies of text, images, video, audio, video games, and software. It's a temptation that many students sadly find it difficult to resist. One reason for this vulnerability may be that students become accustomed to making fair use of copyrighted materials in their own schoolwork. To correct this misconception, it is important to emphasize that students are free to use copyrighted material only in their own schoolwork. It is legal to videotape a television program or tape record a song on the radio for personal use, which means watching or listening it to later. But this does not mean that copies can be passed from person to person, as on a peer-to-peer website where personal copies of music, movies, and video games that people around the world have stored on their own computers and made available to anyone. Taking copyrighted material from these websites is piracy, even if one intends to put the material to personal use. It's a violation of the copyright owner's right to control the reproduction and distribution of his intellectual property. In similar manner, as a teacher, we should get a detailed understanding of the intellectual property rights. I'm sure today's session will light on this area. With these words, let me inaugurate this webinar. I wish all the best to the webinar. Thank you very much.
As a new gen human right, IPR itself is a human right now. So the relevance of human IPR actually increases day by day. And as the term suggests, intellectual property, it is intellectual, connected with your intellect, connected with your creativity. So as being a human being, definitely each one of us have our own sort of creativity and intellect. And the output of intellect is being protected. And that is where we are leading to the intellectual property rights. I'll just share my slide. It is creation of the mind, the intellect. So whatever is the output or the effect of the creation of the mind, you are providing a certain exclusive rights over that product or the output of that intellectual creativity. And this is something which the law is protecting it. You'll be wondering, why should we protect the intellectual creativities? Definitely there is a reason for that. And the way of protecting it is in the form of a property. For that, I'll just briefly go into an example which Bentham have said before, a long time back, regarding the formation of property as such. Just think of a situation where we all were nomads once upon a time. So a nomadic man, he hunts and gets a deer for consumption. He takes the deer to his cave. He have a portion of that deer. The rest of the deer, he is keeping it for having it later. But as nomads, the other nomads comes and take over that deer. He can't help it. The others have taken his so-called property. There exists nothing called property at that time. So it was a society where you had no law and order. So that time there was nothing called property. You can't say this owes to me, this is mine. It cannot be said so. So at that time, in order to meet where there was any fight with regard to any scarce resources, the society itself has brought in the concept of property, whereby I can say this is my property. So now when I buy a phone, that is my property. If I buy a house, that is my property. So that is how the property concept has evolved. It is the same when we consider to intellectual properties also. Before we move on to what an intellectual property is, let us just think of a situation where there exists nothing called intellectual property. So think I'm a scientist. I have been doing research for the past 10 years to find out a very useful invention. And finally, I've come up with an invention. I have spent lakhs and lakhs of rupees on my investment. So I have finally brought a successful invention. I get the help of an investor and I decide to commercialize that invention. And for that machine, the price which I charged is 2 lakh. That's a reasonable price as far as I am concerned, because I have spent 10 years and a lot of lakh of rupees behind that invention. And at that time, one of my colleague, who is also a scientist, happens to come to know about my invention, visits my home. He gets the blueprint of my invention. Oh, so he understood how it worked. So he goes back, he recreates the invention. He gets an investor and he too commercializes it. For him, he haven't spent 10 years behind it. He haven't spent lakhs and lakhs of rupees behind the research and development. So for him, the fair cost is 50,000. So he started to sell his invention for 50,000. So as a consumer, just think, there are two inventions of same quality, same function. One is for 2 lakh and one is for 50,000. Which one you will opt? Definitely you all will be opting for the 15,000 invention. And that is what happens. And as an inventor, what will I do? Oh, I will be under a loss. I will not be even able to recoup the cost that I have incurred on making my invention. So as an inventor, if he have to face such a situation, he would either stop inventing. Because why should I invent, waste my money and incur all the losses if someone else is going to free ride over my invention? So at that stage, what happens is, an inventor, there will be no more inventions or creativities. I just told you an example of invention. This is the same that happens with all these sort of creativities. So a person will be reluctant to do creativities or bring up inventions or writings or anything. And also there are chances where I may come up with an invention out of my curiosity, but I will keep it as secret so that the society is not going to benefit from it. I will be keeping it as secret. Maybe I will use it for my personal purpose or maybe for my dear and near ones. So it can lead to secrecy of invention. This is the scenario that can happen if your intellectual creativity is not protected. Only then you can understand why we should have these intellectual property laws, or why should we protect intellectual property. We need to protect this intellectual property. Can arise where there won't be much arguments. You may be thinking, why should we have creativity? This creativity is something which is going to result in the development of humankind. The whole humankind, if you look, the economic development, the economic growth, or let it be the cultural development, social development, or the progress of the human being as a whole, you need lot of creativities and inventions to come up. So this intellectual property rights are acting as an incentive so that the people are able to be creative, are able to invent things. So this is the basis of the reason why we have intellectual property rights. So due to these reasons, what the society have done is like, okay, your product, the product of your intellectual efforts, you are being given it as a product to yourself. So for that, definitely law have to come in place. Because think of your property. If someone trespasses your home, you can file a case. You will go to the police. Why? Because there is a law and order in the state. Similarly, when someone is encroaching your intellectual property, there is sufficient legal measures available to protect that. That is so a country, a country is looking for a good economic development, a good progress, technical progress and technical development, definitely a country should have a good intellectual property laws. This is nothing else but just the base theory which we all are familiar with, the Locke's labor theory. Whatever is the output of your labor, you have to get it. Whatever you sow, you can reap it. It is the same thing. Here the labor is intellectual labor. So whatever you sow, you are going to reap it. And that is protected by way of intellectual property rights. And when we say intellectual property rights, you all will be familiar with the normal property, the traditional form of property like pen, paper, book, a car, home, land or house, land, whatever it be. Thinking of intellectual property right, a difference is, as your principal have mentioned it, the tangible and intangibility. When I say I have made an invention, the process has happened within me, in my mind. And so there my intellectual property right is in my intellectual effort. Okay. But we are able to protect it only if it comes into the form of a property. That is true. But intellectual property is really an intangible thing. And only when it gets converted into a tangible property, we are able to protect it by law. But really the intellectual property lies in intangible form. Because just think of a situation. I am having a pen with me. If one of you take away my pen, I will be losing it forever. But think of a creation of I have made an invention. I have made a copy of that. If one of you take away my copy, I am not losing my intellectual property, right? Because it stays with me. So that is why I said there is a difference of intangible and tangible. Difference between the traditional property and our normal property. And definitely it's an exclusive right. When I say I have an intellectual property right, it means I can do anything that the law allows with that intellectual property. And moreover than doing anything, what is special is I have the right to exclude the rest of the world. That is important as far as intellectual property right is concerned. I have a IPR means I have a right to exclude rest of the world, not to interfere with my intellectual property right. And the difference with the traditional property is its limitation. See, you buy a car means you possess that, you own that car throughout your life. Until and unless you sell it, you own that. But if you own an IPR, you are not owning it for your lifelong. There is a limited period which is prescribed under each of the legislation. If it is a patent, you are owning the patent only for 20 years. Definitely, there is a reason why legislature have put on such a limitation. It is purely on public interest. If I buy a car, I keep it with me. There is nothing the society is going to get harm with that. But think of a situation. See, for example, we are under a COVID pandemic. I have invented a drug or a medicine with regard to COVID. So I can apply for patent. I will get a patent with regard to that medicine. So there now I have the exclusive right to commercialize that medicine, to sell, manufacture and sell that medicine for the next 20 years. Then, and what happens? Only I will be having the right, unless I license it, only I will be having the right to produce that medicine. So the choice in the market is less. After 20 years, in IPR, we use the term public domain. After 20 years, the invention falls back to public domain, where it is common to all the people. So there what happens? Other drug manufacturing companies can come in and manufacture the drug. So if it is after 20 years when the people are availing the medicine, what happens is they will be having a choice, the same medicine from 5 to 10 manufacturers. So they'll be able to buy it at a cheaper rate. It's the same thing that we had in, just think of the automobile industry earlier. We had a very limited automobiles, like you may be having an Ambassador or a Fiat in the early stages, where the prices were very high at that time, and you need to book and wait for years for getting a car. And now you have a multiple options in front of you. You can choose anything and the next day it is in your house. So that availability for the consumers can be ensured, and also the cheap availability can be ensured only if it is in the public domain. But we cannot forget the rights of the persons who have invented. That is why for a limited period, you are providing the investors, the inventors, some rights so that they can make economic profit out of it. And after that, it comes back to the society so that society can freely use that. And something to be noted is the territorial nature of IPR. I have a patent in India means I have a patent in India only. If I go to America, I cannot say that this is my patented thing in India, so you cannot violate it. You cannot say that. You have to get a patent in America for that. So it is a territorial nature. These are the peculiarities of IPR. These are the peculiarities which is common for all the IPRs, because only after understanding this, because this establishes why we need IPR and how we have to protect it. Ultimately, though this is a right which is given to an individual, this is going to benefit the society at large. And that is why we have created something called an intellectual property rights. If you take intellectual property rights, you can broadly put them in two classes. One is the industrial property. Actually, there are patent, trademark, industrial design, geographical indication, trade secret, layout designs, and copyright. All these are intellectual property rights. But the other the categories that I have mentioned there, though are more related with the industries, and hence we have classified them as industrial property. And copyright. Copyright is much concerned with our cultural and social development, artistic developments. So they are a little, though they can be used, they can be used in the industry, they are a little bit, made in a different classification. So these are the common intellectual property rights that we have. Actually, there are new areas, like you have traditional knowledge, the knowledge which is there, like you have carnitras who have knowledge with regard to medicine. There are a lot of other traditional knowledges that is existing. So now there are discussions like how far IPR can protect this traditional knowledge. Then plant varieties are there. How far you can protect plant varieties under IPR. There are a lot of such new areas that have been added to IPR, or that are under a conflict to be added to IPR. But these are the classifications as per TRIPS, which is the standard setting agreement in the world. I'll just come to that at the end of the session. So we'll just look on to briefly each of these intellectual property rights, as the time constraint is just 1 hour. So, and I am under the presumption that most of the listeners are not much familiar with IPR. That is why I'm just starting from the base. First, patent. As I just told you the example of me making an invention. Similarly, if I make an invention, I am granted with an exclusive right. When I apply for patent, I can apply for the patent and get an exclusive right to deal with that invention. And that exclusive right is what you call as a patent. And this patent protection is definitely given for a limited period, that is 20 years. And this will be an incentive for me to invent more and innovate. When you say innovate, it's like commercializing it further. So ultimately, this is going to develop the human life. The quality of human life is going to be improved by way of such inventions in our life. The figure which I have given in the slide is an example of a vegetable table cutting chopping device, vegetable chopping device. You'll be wondering why I have given such a figure. I'll just tell you. See, what happens usually is I make an invention. If I think my patent is eligible for getting my invention is eligible for getting a patent, what I should do is I have to apply for patent. I should file an application for a patent in the patent office. We have a head office in Kolkata. We have branch offices in Chennai, New Delhi. So we need to apply, give an application of patent. Along with the application, the title and description of my invention have to be detailed. And not just that, you should give a visual detail, a figure. Through figure, you have to explain what are the different parts of your invention, how it is going to work, what is the specialty with this with regard to the existing art. So it is like, when you give the application, what the patent office do is they will search and examine. What they will search whether my invention is already existing or not. That is where we have to come into the next thing, that is the criteria. It's not that you have an invention means tomorrow you're going to get patent. It is not so. Your invention will not make you eligible to get a patent unless it fulfills certain conditions. First condition is it have to be novel. Novel means new. The novelty aspect means, see, it should not be something which is already existing in the public. as I said, the example of the chopping machine, chopping device, vegetable chopping device, that was a very earlier patent application in 1920s or so. So that time, think that they had only a knife, the chopper knife was only available. So a person, maybe after seeing his wife doing all this, he must have come up with such an invention. He thought, okay, without cutting the hand, how can you create, I mean, easily cut vegetables? That is why he have come up with an invention. So that invention is new, it is novel, that it is not something which is already existing. Or it can be, already it may be an invention which is existing, but it has got certain problems. So if I am coming with an invention which will technically solve this problem, then I can say my invention is novel. So an invention I come up with is novel. It should have an inventive step. When you say inventive step, see, that means think of a person who is skilled in that technical field. Think that I am a mechanical engineer, so I know the mechanics. So I have seen an invention, shaft A and shaft B. You are mixing, I mean, connecting these two shafts to get a device. So the person who is skilled in the technology can say that there is nothing new. If these two shafts are connected, this is what is going to happen. This is very obvious to a person who is skilled in the art. Then you can't say that there is an inventive step. So when your invention should be something new, and there should be something which cannot be said, I mean, very plainly seen by a person who is skilled in the art. That is, you must have come up with that some inventive step, something new into that. And definitely your invention must be of something utility, of some use. Because as I said, IPR is for human development. It's for the welfare of the humans. So we are concerned only with what is useful for us. You are just connecting a lot of metal pieces and saying this is a new invention which is not there, but it don't have any use. Or you are saying that it may have a use in the future. You can't help it. When you file a patent, you have to say that what is the use of your invention at the current time. Only if you fulfill all these conditions, your invention is eligible for patent. It have to be new, inventive step, and should be of use. This is something which the teachers have to be really concerned about. Think of science teachers who does experiments with their children. Maybe you may be coming up with new process or a product or a technology during the way of teaching, during the teaching process or during the research process, you'll be coming up with a new invention. Just think of that. Then something which you should never ever do is never publish that invention in, you'll be thinking like, okay, I will publish this new invention that I have found during my research or my studies in the magazine in St. Joseph College. You are having an annual magazine, I'll publish it. Never ever do that. If you do that, your novelty is gone. You can never get patent. If you are publishing it in anywhere in the country, anywhere, at least even if no one have read it, but you have published it, or if one have read it, you will lose the novelty and your invention will no more be eligible to get patent. And also one more thing, keep in mind, you should never share with your colleagues or sharing it with your friends. You are giving your new invention to be used by your friends. You will lose novelty, because even if a single person have used that invention, it means it is put into public use. That is, it is no more a novel thing, no more a new thing. So you won't be able to get a patent. This is what we have come across. This is the mistake which most of the students, teachers, or researchers make. They may come up with invention, but they share it, they publish it. They'll be like, okay, I only published it, then what is the problem? No, it is not so. Even if you have published your own invention, it will no more be new. So never ever go make such a mistake. See, this is how a patent certificate will look like. This blue one is an Indian certificate, the other one is that of an American certificate. After application, the patent office will grant you a patent in this form. Then we are speaking of filing a patent for an invention and filing an invention for a patent and getting it. If you get a patent, what does it mean? If I have a patent, it just means without my permission, no others can commercially make it, use it, distribute it, or sell it, or do anything with that. But I can make, use, distribute, sell, or license it, but no one else can do it without my permission. And as I said, we are coming across many of the IPRs in your day-to-day basis. Starting from the morning, brushing your teeth, toothbrush was once a patented thing. And now also, depending on the change in the shape of the brush, you have zigzag brushes, you have different brushes with different functionalities. Most of them must have been patented. Zip patented. This is a safety pin which is patented. So iPhone, the phone that you use, the lap that you use. So anything and everything that you come across in your day-to-day life, you are coming across intellectual property rights actually. And this is how a patent application goes, which I have already discussed. So this is with regard to patent. And then another area is with regard to copyright, which most of us are worried of. Patent and copyright are the areas maybe as a teachers, researchers, or as students, we have to be more concerned with, because the other IPs are more connected to industries, so they are not going to affect much of us. But as a consumers, we have to depend on those IPR also. So you'll just come across copyright. Copyrights, if you take, as before a patent, I said it is for inventors, you are providing patent. When it comes to copyright, it is for authors. The authors are getting the right for what? For literary and artistic works. When you say literary and artistic work, it is like novel, poem, or dramas, even computer programs and database are also included within the copyright sphere. Then you have cinematograph films, musical compositions, then artistic works like that of drawing, sculpture, or anything of that sort. So any such sort of literary, artistic, or computer programs, dramatic works, all those comes within the sphere of copyright, and the copyright is given for authors. Then you will be one concerned as to who is an author. If it is concerning a literary or artistic work that are like that of a poem or a novel or something, of course, it is the person who creates the work, who writes the work. He gets the copyright. Think of a musical work, it is the composer. Cinematograph film, it is the producer, it's concerned as the author. Think of a sound recording, the producer is considered as the author. Think of a photograph. Many of you must have seen in photographs, there is a symbol of C and a round. In the next slide, this one, this C and a round over it. That is a copyright symbol. So there will be copyrighted photographs. There, the photographer is the author of the copyrighted work. Then computer generated works, the person who is causing the work to be created, he will be the author. So it is for the author who gets the copyrighted work, and the author, who is the author at each circumstances, you have a Copyright Act which prescribes as to who all are concerned as authors. For patent, definitely you have a Patent Act. Then the term of the copyright is, this is, you may be asking why such a long time, because copyright is not like patent, you have only 20 years. Copyright is given for a period, like life of the author plus 60 years. So if I have written a poem or I have written a novel, my life and after my death, till 60 years, my copyright will exist. So till that much time, no one can unauthorizedly use my copyright. After that, it will fall into the public domain. As I've said in the intro, copyright is not much affecting the economic development of the nation or as such, or progress or technological progress. It is more concerned with the social and cultural development. So it's okay to have a monopoly over that copyrighted work for such a long period. And that is why we have a lengthier period for copyright. And something that you need to understand is copyright extends only to expression and not to ideas. You may be wondering, see, I have an idea of writing or making a movie with artificial intelligence as the base. And there is already, you have Chitti, Rajinikanth's movie, where based on artificial intelligence, based on robot. In Malayalam, you have another movie. Already there is movies. So if I make, how can I make? Will I violate the copyright? No problem, because those are only ideas. The expression part is only copyrighted. If I replica a already existing movie, you can say that is a copyright violation. Otherwise, it is not. And Your expression should have an originality. That should be original. Like the novelty in patent, in copyright, it is original. It should not be a duplication of someone else's work. It have to be yours itself. So that originality is the criteria which will give you copyright. And copyright, like the patent, we spoke of your right over to sell, commercialize and all that. That is economic right. Copyright, for a difference, there is one more right added to a copyright. That is a moral right. Economic right, we'll come to the economic rights in the next slide. We'll just speak of moral right. When I say moral right, see, think of a situation where I have written a novel. I am selling my novel, or I'm selling my copyright over the novel. I'm transferring the rights to another publication so that they can publish it thereafter. I am handing over my entire copyright right to them. So just think whether can they change the name of the author from my name to their name? That is not possible. Even if I have lost my copyright over the work, my right to paternity, that is the right to claim authorship of a work, will never go. So even if I have transferred my copyright, that will remain as my work only. No one can change my authorship from my work to someone else's work. That is a moral right. And one more moral right is that is right to integrity. See, I have entrusted a person, I've given my copyright to a person so that he can make a film with my novel or do a translation of my novel. During the process of translation, what he does was he added a lot of obscene scenes or so many things into the matter. Can he do so? No. I have transferred my copyright means he can use it in the way how I have given to him. He cannot harm my reputation. So a creator's reputation cannot be harmed. And that is what you call as a right to integrity. So it is this combination of right to paternity and right to integrity you call as moral right, which exists with copyright. Other than these moral rights, definitely you have the economic rights where you can financially exploit your copyright to get money. Like you have right to reproduction. You can either publish it, you can do sound recording, you can up in the web. So anyway, you can reproduce it in any matter, in any manner. And also right of performance. I have made a music, so I can ask someone to perform it. There again, there is something called performer's right, which you call as neighboring right. See, I have made a composition. I come into agreement with actress Shobana to perform that composition. Then it will depend on our agreement. By agreement, if I am having the right, I will have it, or else Shobana will be having the right to performer's right. When you say performer's right, it includes the right for anyone to record her performance. You can see that in many of her live programs, no one is allowed to have a recording of that because she has performer's right. She is utilizing the performer's right. Similarly, you have broadcasting right. You know, when IPL and cricket is happening, the broadcasting rights are given to a specific channel also. So that is also a part of this copyright, which you call as neighboring rights of copyright. Then for translation, then adaptation, a novel to a screenplay or a film. That is what you call as adaptation. So all such economic rights exist with a copyright. So I can do all these things with my copyright. I can even license or assign my copyright to others so that they can use it for a lump sum amount. Then you will be wondering whether you need to register copyright. And no need of registering. I have written a work, it means I am the author of my work, I have the copyright. But we have a register of copyright at Delhi. You have a copyright office. The purpose of this is you can make a registration. It is your option to register it under the copyright. The effect of registration is that if at all an issue comes up in future, and if you want a prima facie evidence in the court of law, this registration of copyright is a clean evidence. So you need not further argue that act as an evidence. And that is why it is better to have a registration. But even without registration, your work is a copyrighted work. And I think your work being published without permission, you have written a novel. If someone is publishing it without permission or someone is using it without permission, we use the term infringement. Patent also, it is patent infringement. If someone else is violating our right, you call it as an infringement. But there are situations where that will not be an infringement, and that is what you call as fair use doctrine. This is again very important. That is, for certain things there are exceptions, like for the purpose of research and private studies, as our principal was stating it. So for my research, I have to definitely refer to a lot of books and a lot of materials. So I have been referring, I need to incorporate those into my thesis. I can incorporate those into my thesis, but the only thing is you have to acknowledge it. You need not completely copy a book as such. You can use portions of that book, but you need to acknowledge it. You can take photo stats, no issues. For if it is for your personal purpose of studying, you can do. Or if you are taking a book for reviewing the book, or for criticizing, or for some sort of proceedings or news reporting or anything, all these can be done. So under the fair use doctrine, actually all these aspects comes within the fair use doctrine. So these things are accepted from the purview of infringement. So even if you haven't got the permission from the author, for these purposes, you can use his work. There again, sorry.
So, carry on.
Okay.
Carry on, please.
So, at such situations, even though these will not come within the aspect of infringement. And there is actually a famous case of Delhi University case in 2016, I guess. It will be, I mean, I'm not dealing with much cases in your slide because this is not a legal presentation, but the facts which may be of helpful to you or interesting, I'm just stating it. In the Delhi University case, what happened was, like, see, university library, you can take the book. In here also, in your library also will be the same. You can take the book and get a copy. Okay. So for study purpose, you can get a copy. You can get the photostat. And what happens in that case is, the boy who stood in the photostat shop, he just knew that these are the things which regularly children take during these semesters as photocopy for study. So what he did was, he just took the photostat of those same portions, spiral it and kept it as a book. So when the students come, okay, second semester, okay, so these are the things that you're going to take photostat, take it, and he will buy the cash. So it was, with regard to Oxford, and so many other publishers were there. So they went for the case, and it was like, okay, what the court said was, see, even the Delhi University supported the photostat boy because, see, he have taken it for the purpose of study. But what the court said was, if the student have taken the books from the library and come up for taking photostat, that was okay. That was fair. It comes within the fair use. But now it have changed from the fair use to a commercialization aspect, where he have taken those portions and have binded it and is selling it like a book now. So there the color of that have changed from fair use to an infringement. That was the famous Delhi University case. And area where most of us will be concerned is, like, most of the questions usually comes in these areas, like what happens as a journalist if I am doing something. So whether that is my work or the employment work, if I'm doing it as an employment, or if you are doing it as for a consideration, by buying a consideration from someone, how it works. In that, I will take you through a case, that is Manorama versus V.T. Thomas, the famous Bob and Molly case. And every one of us will be aware of the cartoon character Bob and Molly. It was the creation of V.T. Thomas, who is popularly known as Toms. So actually, earlier he was working for Malayalam Manorama, and his cartoons, he was publishing those Bob and Molly cartoons in Manorama, for definitely under a contract of employment for a remuneration. After his retirement, again, his creativity doesn't die. So after his retirement, again, he started up with the Boban and Molly cartoons. So at that time, Kala Kaumudi approaches him and he started to publish it in the Kaumudi. So Manorama went for a case against V.T. Thomas as well as the Kala Kaumudi because there is violation of copyright. So what the court said was, see, that is where you can see the difference of at the course of employment and the other ways. During the course of employment, whatever the person creates, definitely the employer will be having a right, unless there is an agreement in the contrary. But if I am working for Manorama, and that time Manorama will be definitely having the copyright of the work that I do. Or I am doing it for it's like for one time I'm just doing something for Manorama, but I have got a consideration from Manorama or consideration from some other person, and I'm doing a work. Then that work, I've bought it for I've done it for a consideration, so that goes to that person who have given you consideration. It's the same case with government work or public work and all that. If you are doing it under a course of employment or under a course of agreement, it goes to the other person, or else the creator will be the sole author of that work. And something which you will be much concerned is with regard to the internet, that using things which is published in the internet. See, if it is only a difference in the medium. If it is a copyrighted work, whether you are copying it from the paper, whether you are copying the sound recording, whether you are copying it from the internet, it is copying. It is copyright infringement. If at all there is copyright existing. Or else you need to get the permission of the author. You can see that most of the articles, certain scholarly articles, if you take, you can just see the abstract. If you try to get the full text, it will be like permission author on page this much, so you will not be able to access it. So there will be a license kept, or at certain site there may be a general license which is granted through the website so that you can have access. Okay, so otherwise, actually, if it is most of the internet also, you can see copyrighted, the symbol will be given. So it is never better to copy the copyrighted work. Then if you are using something from the internet, like I have said before, acknowledging the author, similarly acknowledge the web address. That is a fair way of using it. So these two are the major areas of patent and copyright which are much relevant as a researcher, student, or a teacher. Then there is the other IPRs. Definitely you have to be aware of this as an individual, a citizen, as a consumer. One of that is trademark. To be more clear with trademark, I think this slide will help you. All of you be familiar with all these symbols. And Coca-Cola, Nike, LG, Yahoo, Amul, and all that. This is what a trademark is. So a symbol which connects you to a brand. And definitely it's not just the symbol. Here, see, for example, Nike have and you have tagline, just do it. That tagline is also part of the trademark. So this trademark, where it will be a sign, will make you identify certain goods and services as a certain persons or a certain companies. So when you see a tick mark, automatically you think, okay, this is a Nike product. Nike product. What is that you, as a consumer, you are referring to? You will be referring to the quality of that product. When I'm going to buy a shoes, when I'm going to take a Nike shoes, what will be in my mind? Okay, if I'm buying a shoes from Nike, it is definitely going to have this quality. So it is always the quality to a product which the consumer recognizes by seeing a trademark. And that is the relevance of a trademark. And if someone is deceiving you, then the consumer can get deceived if there are similar marks. We have come across such things, instances, day-to-day life. Even starting from the sweets, you can see eclairs and a small spelling difference, or mango bite with a small spelling difference. Color combination will be the same, which will make you think that it is the other thing. This is what you call as deceiving. Okay, so that should not happen actually. And again, it can be a combination of words, letters, numbers, drawing, symbol, anything could be that, but not a design, because we have something called the designs. So we are not speaking of the design of something, but the symbol which will connect you with that particular brand. And you also have collective mark and certification mark. See, for collective mark means, for example, chartered account. You are a member of Chartered Account Association, so they have a CA mark. So if you are using CA, so others will be under the impression you belong to that CA association. So whatever you do is in as per the fulfillment of the requirement of that association. It is similarly, you have certification mark, ISO certificate. All of us will be familiar with it. So if you see such a certification mark in a product, it means it ensures the standards which the ISO prescribes. So these are the marks which the trademark do support. So this trademark is basically helping you to identify the good. And again, you have to register this trademark, and the registration will give you, like all the other IP, you also have under the Trademark Act, you can register in India only. But for trademark, there is a different scenario where you can do international registration also. Okay. And the period is just 10 years, and this can be renewed by paying the fees as such. And another interesting example which will help you to identify how decisive these marks can be is the case of Benz versus Haibo Hindustan. You all are familiar with Mercedes-Benz automobile, and I hope you are familiar with the emblem. That is a circle with a 3 pointed lines in it, like a chakra. 3 lines will be there. And this Haibo Hindustan, they are basically undergarment industry. They have also brought out a similar emblem. It is a circle, but not just a pointed line. It is basically 3 people, human beings are standing with hands raised. But on the first side, you will feel like a Benz emblem. So the Benz gave case against them, and the court said this is what is deceptively similar. Like in between, you had a Bhima, similar to Bhima. The guy in the Bhima, that same pattern, you had a similar thing. So you will feel, okay, this is Bhima. So such deceptively similar mark, again, there also you can go for infringement of those trademarks. So as a consumer, we have to be concerned with those, because these are more connected to the industrial things. So we are, as a consumer only, we have to get concerned with those. Then you have another category is designs. As I said before, the shape, color, configuration. See, the best example would be the Coca-Cola bottle shape that we had. See, this was something, a design which they applied for design between. So based on that, the designs you can apply for protection. The only thing that you need to keep in mind when you apply for a design protection is, actually this is not of, this is concerned with the industry only. We need not be much worried of that as such, because I'll tell you first, I'll tell you why this designs is important for them. Or even for us to an extent. See, think of, you are going to Imagine Tree. You have 2 products, both are having the same value, I mean same functions, same quality, same price also. Which one you will choose? Definitely the one which is appealing to your eyes. Because when you have an equal place, what you can give an upper hand is to looks. So if that is having an appealing look, okay, then you will choose the product which has a good design. That is why design is important. But under the Designs Act, what you have to be concerned is, the design should not be a part of the functionality of the product. I have a particular product, that product can be used only if it is made in such a design. Then you can apply for a design protection under that. Because anyone, if you want to make that product, they also need to use the shape. So there you won't get the protection under Design Act. So the functionality of the product should not be in connection with the design. Those have to be separate. Only then you can have a protection under the Designs Act. Then another important area which most of us must have come across is geographical indication. You will be familiar with the geographical indication products. Aranmula Kannadi, then Balramapuram Kaitri, Nagpur Orange, Darjeeling Tea, a lot of such things which you are familiar with. You are, from these terms which I have used, I hope it's clear that it is connected with the geography. So certain goods, they are having certain specialities or qualities or features because they are made or grown in that particular geographical region. For them, you will give a tagline, GI tag, which you call as geographical indication. So these are protected under the geographical indication. So they have to be, the important and the only criteria is their speciality or quality must be in connection with the geography with which it is connected. So when you say Darjeeling tea, it is special because of the place in which it is grown. Darjeeling tea is grown in Darjeeling. The weather, the climate there, the soil there is giving it that special quality. So if you take a Darjeeling tea plant from Darjeeling, bringing it to Munnar, you are planting it here. If you sell it under the Darjeeling tea tag, then you are violating a geographical indication. Even if you have taken the plant from Darjeeling, you cannot say it as a Darjeeling tea. Darjeeling tea can be grown only in Darjeeling. Nagpur orange. Nagpur orange is the speciality with a combination of sweet and sour taste. That is due to the climatic conditions of that geographic area. So Nagpur orange, if it is grown anywhere in the world, it is no more a Nagpur orange. So this is why it is important to have a GI tag and to protect that. And the reason for protection definitely is nothing else but the fact that, see, the consumer, as a consumer, I want the quality of that Darjeeling tea. I'm going and buying the Darjeeling tea, but think I have been misrepresented by the seller. They have grown it in Munnar and sent me as a Darjeeling tea. Then I have been deceived. Then similarly, the person who is actually producing the Darjeeling tea, they are also the genuine product. They are also losing a valuable business. So these two angles have to be protected, and that is why we need a geographical indication. And there is numerous number of geographical indication which have been awarded. See, these are a few in the recent times. Then Pochambali Ikat. These are Channapatna wooden toys and Ethikopaka wooden toys. Channapatna is in Bangalore, Karnataka based, and this one, Ethikopaka toys. You all must have seen these toys. Those are Andhra Pradesh. Then Pashmina shawl from Kashmir. You have this one, Tirur Vettila. Then Tirupati Leddu, which got GI tag. See, in Kerala, you have again a plenty number of things. Nilambur, take Alappuzha, you have the choir, the Kadam of Alappuzha, then Aranmula Kannadi, Payanur, Pavitra ring. There's a lot and lot of GI tags that we have got. And that is the reason and need of protecting GI. Then another area which I have mentioned in the starting of the slide is trade secret, or you can see it as an undisclosed information, which you can keep as secret. As I said before, the internationally, you have TRIPS agreement under which they state what all are the IPRs. They have mentioned trade secret, but we doesn't have a law till now in India to deal with the trade secret. So we usually protect it under the breach of confidence action. That is, see, you must have heard of Coca-Cola's trade secret is out. There were a lot of such worries in between. So it's like, I'm a company, I'm having a trade secret with regard to my product. So I will be having a confidence agreement within my company to keep it as a secret. So if at all that secret is breached, then I will sue them. I can sue them, breach of confidence. So these are with regard to the general insight into the different IPR and IP rights, so that you as a researcher, student, teacher, or a consumer will be able to protect your right and also not to go and infringe someone else's right. This slide is nothing else but, as I said before, these all doesn't start one day as an IPR. It was not so. Actually, if you take the history, you can see earlier in England, Kuhn have given a letters patent, a monopoly, to a group of craftsmen who have come from another country who know a particular skill. Those were not known in England. So what the Kuhn did was, see, I'm giving you a privilege. You stay in my country, you solely do the business of that skill, but only thing, when you go, teach a few persons the skill. So that is why they were trying to develop their nation, technological transfer and economic development. As a part of that, that is how the patent have come up. So likewise, the history speaks so many such instances where slowly IPR-like rights started to develop. The first instrument which recognized it was Paris Convention in 1883, but that was with regard to industrial property alone. Then you had the Berne Convention with regard to copyright. But again, different countries are having different form of protection. So finally, we have come up with TRIPS, trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, TRIPS agreement tried to harmonize intellectual property. They have put a standard of intellectual property throughout the world globally. So every countries who are members to the TRIPS have to be in compliance with the TRIPS agreement. Even in India, we have changed our legislation to be in tune with the TRIPS agreement. And that is how we are trying to harmonize intellectual property globally, because we are in a world of globalization. So this is in a brief intro into the intellectual property rights. Definitely, there are a lot of areas which you need to go in deep. But as I said, as the time constraint, I've tried to cover in general the entire thing for your knowledge. So if you anyone of you have any doubts or anything, please be free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I don't know whether you have noticed the comments in the chat box. It was like this very nice, informative section, excellent section was. Yeah, it was very, it was a wonderful talk on intellectual property rights. Also, I do definitely think that it will be helping us in the future. So, dear participants, now this is the time for the interactive session. You can ask your questions by unmuting your mics. You can ask your doubts, queries directly to the speaker.
Thanks a lot for the comments. So happy to know that you all have liked the session actually, because I was just trying to have a very brief intro to IPR.
So shall we wind up the session? Now I call upon Dr. Anisha V. Gopalakrishnan, Assistant Professor, St. Joseph Training College, Mananam, to deliver the vote of thanks. Anisha, Miss.
Good afternoon to all. Respected resource person, Ashwati ma'am, Principal Dr. Varghese K. Cherian, participants of this webinar, dear colleagues and my dear students. It's my privilege to propose a formal vote of thanks to our resource person, Ms. Ashwati G. Krishnan, Assistant Professor in the Department of Law, Kerala University. Ma'am started her presentation by considering IPR as a new-gen human rights. Ma'am has clearly explained the fundamentals of IPR, and she has discussed on different aspects of IPR, like what is a patent, rules for getting patent, and copyrights. And she enriched us with very good examples for explaining each idea. Ma'am, we appreciate having this mysterious and unfamiliar area clarified. And we are sure that in future, it will be very useful for our students and faculty members to understand the rules related to copyrights and patents. On behalf of St. Joseph's Training College, Mananam, and all the participants, I express my sincere gratitude to you, ma'am, for your very interesting presentation.
Thank you so much.
I would further extend my sincere gratitude to our principal, Dr. Varghese K. Cherian, for delivering the inaugural address. Thank you very much, sir, for your enriching inaugural address and for all the support provided to us for organizing this webinar. I must mention my deep sense of gratitude to Dr. Sindhu Tulsidaran, Associate Professor, Department of Law, University of Kerala, for her support in suggesting and arranging for us an apt resource person for this webinar. In spite of her busy schedule, ma'am has joined us today. Hearty thanks to you, ma'am, for your efforts and presence. I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Ronu Thomas, IQAC coordinator of our college, for her effort to make this webinar a success. I also thank Dr. Praveena Gobidar, who is the coordinator of this webinar, who has arranged and organized everything regarding the event. We are very happy to note that we have participants from all across India, such as various states like Andhra Pradesh, Assam, Telangana, Himachal Pradesh, Kashmir, etc. And along with that, we also had a few international participants too. I extend my sincere thanks to all the participants from all across and outside the country who made themselves available to attend this webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you, Anisha. The feedback form now is available and it is shared in the group. I ask all the participants to fill up the form. E-certificates will be delivered to your mail after you have successfully completed the submission. If you didn't receive the e-certificates within 3 to 4 days, you may contact us. or else wait for the 3 to 4 days. The link will also be shared into your WhatsApp group also, so don't worry. Now it's time to wind up the session. I thank all for your time and active listening and participation. Thank you once again for your cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwati ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for your valuable information. It was a very nice presentation, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Indeed, a pleasure to be here.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.